marwo Faadumo Siciid oo kamid ah haweenka haldoorka Somaliland isla markaana xilligan ah la taliyaha xiriirka caalamiga ee golaha guurtida Somaliland ayaa hadal qiiro badan ka jeedisay kulan ka dhacay xarunta baarlamaanka ee Britain kulankan oo ujeedadiisu ahayd sidii dhaqaale loogu heli lahaa kasoo kabashada dhibaatadii ka dhacday suuqa ganacsiga ee ugu weyn Somaliland ee Waaheen oo gubtay 1 Abriil 2022 isla markaana shufbeelay waxay marwo Faadumo Siciid ka jeedisay warbixin la xidhiidha baaxadda dhibaatada dhaqaale ee ka soo gaadhay Somaliland gubashada iyo sida dadkii ku waayay dhaqaalahooda u heli lahaayeen taageero marwo Faadumo Siciid waxay ka warantay ahmiyadda dhaqaale iyo ganacsi ee uu Somaliland u lahaa suuqa Waaheen iyadoo xusteen shacbiga Somaliland gubashada suuqa Waaheen xasuusiyay duqeyntii diyaaradaha iyo burburkii taliskii militariga ee Maxamed Siyaad Barre ay u geysteen 1988 oo ay ku waayeen shacbiga naf iyo maalba balse ay dalkooda dib u dhisteen oo ay noloshooda ka soo bilaabeen meel maran oo burburtay sidoo kale waxay marwo Faadumo Siciid ka hadashay qaabka loo xakameyn kari waayay dabkii iyo baaxadii oo sababtay inuu dabkii noqday mid ka awood badan wixii ay dabdamiska Somaliland haysteen maadaama aanay haysan qalab iyo gaadiid ku filan oo ay ku xakameyn karaan dabka sidaa oo kale ah iyo wixii ay bulshadu awoodaysay marwo Faadumo Siciid waxay tusaale u soo qaadatay haweenkii doonayay in shirkamo biyaha ku baktiyaan iyo baaxadda u lahaa oo sababtay khasaaraha weyn iyadoo xustay boqolaal haween ah oo ay ka mid ahaayeen dadkii suuqa ganacsiyada yaryar ku haystay marka laga yimaado ganacsiyadii waaweynaa kuwaas oo aan maanta haysan dhaqaale iyo waxay noloshooda ku dabaraan ma cabiri karo wixii dhacay waxay ahayd masiibo weyn waa dareemi kartaa suuqa weyn ee London haddii uu shufbeelo sidii ay xaaladdu noqonaysaa runtii waa arrin muruga ah sababtoo ah suuqa Waaheen wuxuu ahaa suuqa ugu weyn Somaliland oo halbowlaha u ahaa dhaqaalaha dalka ayay tiri marwo Faadumo Siciid waxa ay ku celcelisay in dhibaatada ka dhacday Waaheen ay u baahan tahay gurmad weyn si loo badbaadiyo nolosha kumanaan qoys oo ku waayay hantidooda kuwaas oo aan maanta waxba haysan marwo Faadumo Siciid waxa kale oo ay ku dheeraatay taariikhda xiriirka soo jireenka ee Somaliland iyo Britain iyadoo tusaale u soo qaadatay sida ay dadka Somaliland isku garab taageen Britain gaalkii weynaa ee adduunka oo ay sida ay sheegtay aabaheed Siciid uu ka mid ahaa dadkii naftooda u huray sidii loo difaaci lahaa Britain oo ka barbar dagaalamayay dagaalkii koowaad ee adduunka sidaas awgeed waxa ay tilmaantay in maanta Somaliland masiibada uu sababay dabka suuqa Waaheen ay tahay mid xanuun badan oo shacbiga Somaliland ka sugayaan dawladda Britain sidii ay door weyn uga qaadan lahaayeen kulankan xarunta baarlamaanka UK ka qabsoomay salaasadii waxa ka qayb galay xildhibaano ka tirsan baarlamaanka UK kuwaas oo ay ka mid ahaayeen xildhibaan Sir Kevin Williamson xildhibaan Stephen Dodge xildhibaan Kari iyo safiirka Somaliland u jooga UK ambassador Cabdi Ducaale sidoo kale waxa kulankan ka qayb galay qaar ka mid ah bulshada Somaliland ee ku dhaqan UK iyo shakhsiyaad kale oo muhiim ah waxaana lagu faaqiday dhibaatada ka dhalatay suuqa Waaheen iyo sida looga soo kaban lahaa
places where our Somaliland community actually came from. I remember when my father, who served with the Navy in the Second World War, when it finished, it was in Liverpool that they docked before then going over to Cardiff. And most of you will know that a lot of Somaliland men fought in the Second World War. But I don't think you knew that they also fought in the Falkland War. And my father again was one of them. When the then Prime Minister, called for all able-bodied men to re-enlist, my father came out of retirement to fight for Queen and country. And it was because he wanted to, and he wanted to show how he felt about his adoptive country. And today, as I am a proud Welsh lass, I am also a very proud Somalilander. And as my father fought for the UK in the Second World War and in the Falkland War, I am today fighting for Somaliland and my home country. And Ibrahim has given you a full detail of exactly what happened. I just wanted to give you a bigger picture of Waaheen. What is Waaheen? Waaheen is a market, yes. But then it's not any market, like Portobello Market or the Cardiff Open Air Market. This was a community centre for people to come to. It was a small business startup centre that helped other businesses start up. It was it was where people used to come and bring money. So you'd have about 20 stores, and in that 20 stores they would have a financial setup that we call Hagbat. Hagbat is that every market store will give money for a month, and then that following month somebody else will be given that bulk. So it was a transaction that helped other members to start up their businesses. It was where women felt that they could show what their talents were. There was no segregation, there was nothing. Wahen market was more than a market. It was a livelihood. It wasn't just livelihood. It was the essence of Somaliland. So of course, when the fire broke out, the biggest problem that everybody faced was lack of equipment. Our fire brigade bravely came, and our National Guards bravely came, but what could they do? They had this blazing fire which was about 3-4 story buildings high. You can imagine Granville. Well, this was 10 Granvilles put together, and the only thing that we're very grateful for was that there wasn't people inside that died. But then their livelihood died. When your livelihood for the last 15, 20, 30 years go up in flames, then most of the people would become suicidal. The post-traumatic stress of that, watching your whole life go up in flames in front of you and you can't do anything about it, is one of the most horrible, horrific things. And it brought back memories. It brought back memories of 1988, when Hargeisa was being bombed by the planes that were taking off from Hargeisa airport. It reminded the people of what we went through, the devastation. The post-traumatic stress that happened to the people who were watching is absolutely incredible. I was in London, which is millions of miles away, and I couldn't stop crying because it brought back memories again for us. Wahen was an institution within itself. It was our Wall Street. So you can imagine Wall Street or the financial marketplace in London blowing up. That's what it meant to us. But the worst thing was when you see the flames, when you see the smoke, when you see your livelihood going up in flames and you can't do anything. A lot of people tried to go in and see if they could take things out, but it was impossible. The fire brigade came, they wanted to go in, they couldn't go in. They couldn't go in because the flames were on their faces, it was singeing their eyes, it was singeing their hair, their faces were becoming blotchy. Half of them couldn't breathe because they had no oxygen, no cylinders, and it was impossible. The worst thing about it was that when the fire was so high and the fire brigades took out their ladders, they still couldn't reach the fires because the water that they had in the tanks didn't have the pressure it needed to go up and to take that fire out. And that was when we realized that, of course, we don't have the points, the water points that we have in the UK, so that the fire engine can have their hose and plug it into the water point, and then be able to cascade the water into the fire. That was one thing that we didn't have. They didn't have the masks that would protect their faces. They didn't have the jackets that would protect their bodies. So they were literally going into a fire, a blazing, terrifying, horrific fire, which they didn't even know that they would be able to come out of. The people who were there were trying to put out the fire. They used buckets, they used their cups, I saw women that were taking off their shallots, their outer covering, and damping it into the water and then throwing it into the fire just to see if they could put the fire out. The horrific challenges that they went through is something that I cannot explain here. It's impossible for me to do it. But I think you can imagine exactly what they were going through. Now the question is, what can we do to help them? I'm talking about women who were making little tea shops. There were women who were sitting down with little vegetables. There was women that were little fruits. The smallest one would be selling nuts. The smallest of the things that they did was sell nuts. And that is also that they can put their children through school, so they can put their children through colleges, through universities. Those people have absolutely nothing. The worst thing about it is that Somaliland, the people don't understand it, mostly don't understand about banks. So of course they don't take their money at the end of the day, count it and then take it to the bank. They put it into steel trunks and they put about 4 or 5 locks on it. And then you have the watchman look after it. The biggest and incredible that I can't even explain is that when we got the fire out, eventually the following day, those people rushed to their places and they couldn't recognize it. Half of them didn't know where their stall was. They were just standing in the middle of rubble and crying and thinking, where on earth do I go from here? Because there was nowhere. They couldn't identify their place of work because it was gone. There was nothing there. And then whatever they found, and the trunks that they found, and the steel containers and safes that they found, can you imagine the jubilation that they found their trunk, their safe, and they started opening it, a block at the time, and then by the time they opened it, it was empty because there was nothing but ash. Even the gold melted in most places. It was that hot. It was that devastating. It was that horrific. It is easy to count the people who are in the stalls. It's very easy for us to turn around and say, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. But how do you count the women who were trading under the stores, by the stores, behind the stores, at the sides of the stores, that nobody knew anything about? You had new traders coming in every day. Every day there was a new trader. How on earth do you contemplate? How do you how do you make? How do you count? How do you say that that's the quantity that they should have? It's impossible. It really is impossible.
ma ka mid tahay xoolo dhaqatada Soomaalida ee doonaya inay daryeelaan xoolahooda inaad xoolahaaga u hesho calaf nafaqo leh oo qiimihiisu uu jaban yahay wadanka gudihiisana diyaar kugu ah hore u gaad warshada Border Mills oo soo saarta daqiiqda iyo calafka xoolaha waxaana diyaar ku ah xaddi badan oo calafka xoolaha oo nafaqaysan oo loogu talagalay dadka xoolo dhaqatada Soomaalida haddii aad doonayso calafkaasi nafaqada leh ee qiimihiisu uu jaban yahay hore u gaad Border Mills duleedka galbeed ee magaalada Hargeysa gaar ahaan deegaanka Arabsiyo